Hey everyone, it's Mary. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm back with my first ever full-length book review that I've ever done on this channel, which is kind of exciting. I know some people have been asking me to do book reviews, and so I'm really excited to be here and doing a full-length book review for you guys. So keep in mind that because this is a full-length book review, you guys are going to have a few spoilers. I will try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, but there will be some spoilers because you can't really talk about some of the details in this particular book unless you spoil a few things. So keep that in mind. If you have not read the book, or if spoilers really bother you, you may not want to watch this. But if you're like me and you don't care about spoilers, then keep watching. All right, so a few months ago when I first started my channel, I did a video where I talked about why I don't like to read Christian romance novels. And one of the reasons I gave was because a lot of times the plots are very simple plots, or they're really silly things, like they just need to have a conversation and the whole fight's over. And I get really annoyed that some of these plots don't follow real life. So I said, well, if anybody has a Christian romance novel that is more realistic, then let me know and I will be happy to read it. So I was recommended Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. Now, I have never read anything from Francine Rivers. I've heard of her, I've just never read her works, and everyone kept saying that this book is a romance that is totally different and that I will love the book. So I picked it up. It's a very long book. It was originally published in the mid to late 90s. I think it was 1997, I believe, that this was first released, and it's about 460 pages, but I have the version that is the book with the reader questions, and there's also a Bible study that goes along with this. So this has discussion questions like you would do in a book club, or a women's small group type thing, but then you can also get a companion Bible study book that goes along with it. So that's why this copy's a little longer. Probably without the Bible, not the Bible study, but the discussion questions, it'd be about 450 pages worth. So I'm going to try again to keep this as spoiler free as possible, but I will have to describe this in some detail for you guys to understand what's going on. So it takes place in 1850 California, around the gold rush times, 1850s-ish of California is when it takes place, and the couples are Angel and Michael. So Angel is a young woman who, I'll kind of go through her backstory here. So she's the product of a married man, and I don't know if she was his mistress or a favorite prostitute or what, but basically this married man and her mother had a thing, and she was the product of that. The father didn't want the child and asked the mother to get rid of the child. The mother refused, and she ended up giving birth to this daughter, so the father cuts them off, and she's raised in poverty. Her mother ends up turning to prostitution to get enough money to feed her child, and unfortunately ends up passing away when Angel is very, very young. So then Angel is taken in by some friends of her mother's, and she is given to a man who they think is taking in orphans to adopt out into families, but they unfortunately find out that he is actually not adopting these children out. He is taking them and turning them into prostitutes. So he basically takes in these young girls and he grooms them and he turns them into prostitutes. So Angel, from the age of very young, I'm wanting to say she's less than 10, she's 8 or 9 maybe 10 at the most, is given into this prostitution lifestyle, and she is raised that way her entire life. So fast forward, she is well into this prostitution lifestyle. She's unfortunately that's her life. She has this guy who's in charge of her, who gets her money. She has a woman who she's in. So they have what do you call it back in the day where they have the houses, a whorehouse, I guess you'd call it, where it's a woman. There's a man and a woman who own the house, and all the money goes to them, and you get paid off of what they get, kind of like a John, I guess you would call it. And that's her life. Well, one of these days she's walking down the street, and Michael, who's the man in the story, sees her, and of course he thinks she's beautiful because she's all made up, and he hears God telling him to marry her. And you're like, okay. So he ends up going to see her, but not for those reasons, fully dressed, no hanky-panky, just talking to her. And so she thinks it's weird because he pays money to spend time with her, but then they don't actually do anything. He's just talking to her and befriending her. And after a few visits, he asks her to marry him. And so I can get you out of this lifestyle. I need you to marry me. She obviously refuses him because she thinks he's nuts. But then after she is badly beaten one night by one of her gentleman callers, he ends up talking her into basically marrying him and going back to his farm because he is a farmer. So that's how the two of them meet. It's a very interesting beginning to the book. And if you are a Christian who has done any kind of reading in the Old Testament, you'll recognize parts of this story because it's actually based on the book of Hosea. And in fact, the main character's name is Michael Hosea in the book. And so the book of Hosea is a man that God tells him to marry a prostitute. And you can actually read the whole book of Hosea. That's what the Bible study part of this book goes with. If you get the Bible study, it's a Bible study of Hosea along with you reading this book. So they're kind of very parallel. So anyway, I thought it was interesting that she used that book of the Bible for inspiration for this story. So the story goes on with her living with Michael after they're married in the farm and trying to assimilate to life outside of prostitution. She has no skills on homemaking. She doesn't know how to cook. She doesn't know how to clean. She doesn't know how to farm. She doesn't really know how to be like a spouse, how to be in a relationship with anybody, because her entire life men have wanted things from her and she's provided them to be taken care of. So it's weird to her that like Michael just takes care of her because you're my wife and that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm not expecting anything from you. There's all of that. So it's a lot of her just trying to like figure out what it's like to be a real relationship with somebody. And I will go ahead and ruin this, that you get very frustrated because she keeps running away, which is actually, again, parallel to the book of Hosea. She's trying to run away from him and then he takes her back, and then she runs away from him and then he takes her back, and she keeps running away. So I'm going to try to review this from the perspective of a regular romance reader and the perspective of like a Christian reader, because it has two very different meanings. And the first one would be, if I'm reading this as a regular reader, dude's total being walked on. Like you get so frustrated because you're like, dude, you keep taking her back. She obviously doesn't want to be with you because she keeps running away. You go and get her, you bring her back, and then she runs away. She's walking all over you. Like, stand up for yourself and be a man and tell her she needs to get it together or ship out. You know what I mean? That's kind of what you're thinking in your head. Like, why do you keep taking this woman back who doesn't want you? Like, stop being a pushover and like stand up for yourself. So it's really super frustrating. But then from a Christian perspective, what the book of Hosea is representing is how God's people keep walking away from him, and yet he's always there to take you back. So then from a Christian's perspective, you're like, oh, I can't believe I do that to God and he takes me back every time. Like, it has that kind of meaning. But just from a romance perspective, you're like, dude, seriously, get it together. Why are you taking her back? So anyway, it was kind of an interesting parallel. But I actually really did like this book. I think that it gets a little slow in the like last 3/4 of the way through. It gets a little slow and you're just like, she keeps running away and you keep taking her back. Like, I'm done. Like, get it together. And I had to kind of push through, but I actually really did like the book. At the very end of the book, I will not ruin the entire ending, but let's just say there were some events that happened. She ends up getting her life together. She ends up finding God. She ends up saved, and they end up together at the end and have a beautiful story. And the way it's wrapped up at the end really shows you like that God can take a broken lifestyle and turn it around to become a testimony and a way to help other people. And I really love the way it was wrapped up. So I actually really liked this book. And because I liked this book, I did order a few other Francine Rivers books. So I was really excited that I enjoyed this book so much. I'm trying not to ruin a lot, but I will say that if you are not a Christian reader and you try to read this book, you're going to be very, 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 very frustrated with both characters because it's hard to understand. But then when you put it in perspective of the book of Hosea and the purpose of the book of Hosea and what that book is trying to teach people about God's love for his people, it makes sense. And so I did really end up liking the book overall because of that point of view, or because of that aspect of it. Something else really cool that I'm interested to see how they do is it's being turned into a movie. It's supposed to be released in early 2021, and there's a few early look trailers and like videos and things on YouTube. So if you search Redeeming Love movie, you will find those on YouTube. I definitely will probably have to go see this. I know it's partially being produced, I know Roma Downey has something to do with it. I don't know if she's producing it or directing it, but I know that Roma Downey, for those of you who don't know, did Touched by an Angel, and she did several other like Christian movies and things. So anyway, very good book. It's definitely a good book, but again, if you're not a Christian, this book is just not going to resonate with you in the same way, because I'm not saying don't read it, because I think you should still read it. It's a good book, but I just don't think that the overall story, like the lesson that's being taught here, is not going to probably like click with you if you are not of the Christian, mindset. But I did really like the book, and I'm looking forward to reading her other works, because she's been around for years and I've just never really read her stuff. So anyway, have you read Redeeming Love? Did you love the story? What did you love? What did you not love about it? And have you read any other Francine books that you think I should check out? So let me know. Leave me a comment below. Hope y'all are doing well, and I will talk to you later. Bye.